Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm the founder of FemPeak, a Web3 education platform where we prepare you to participate in the ownership economy and the next generation of the internet. We are led by women and inclusive to everyone, ready to shape the new emerging world order driven by technology. My guest on today's podcast is Sadie Raney, the co-founder of Makara. Sadie previously served as controller for Bluebox pre- and post-acquisition by IBM. She's part of the Female Founder Alliance and is mentor for the Barcelona Technology Transfer Group. Sadie is also a member of the Strix Leviathan Nest Fund Investment Committee. We had a great discussion about the state of the crypto market and her success as a woman in the space. Without further ado, let's listen to what Sadie has to say. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are, the business that you've built, and tell us the good news.
Sure. So I am CEO and co-founder of Strix Leviathan, which is a crypto hedge fund. We've been operating for about 4 years now. Prior to that, my career has always been in accounting and finance, more back office operations roles. But after getting my MBA from the University of Washington, I decided I wanted to go work in the startup world. So I went to work for a private cloud startup based in Seattle at that point in time. And about a year after that, we were acquired by IBM. And going through that process was absolutely grueling, but very exciting and really lit a fire for me to be in the startup world and to stay in the startup world. So when the founder of that company decided to start another company a couple of years later, he asked if I was interested in being his co-founder, which I leapt at the opportunity. He's just a fantastic person, and he's an entrepreneur and a real technical entrepreneur. And so he needed somebody to build out the business with him that did all of the other things that were not technical, the operations, accounting, finance, and things like that. So we started the company 4 years ago, kind of right after the 2017 big first run up in crypto, where everyone around the world started to really first hear about it. So we started that company 4 years ago. It's been a very interesting time. And about a year ago, we decided to spin another company out of Strix Leviathan. So Strix Leviathan is a hedge fund. It's a private hedge fund. So we're limited to qualified purchasers to invest in the vehicles. And we decided about a year ago that just wasn't good enough. We wanted to build something that offered the platform and the stability that we've built as a company to everyone. And from that idea, we launched a company called Makara, and it was at the time the first SEC registered robo-advisor for crypto. And we launched that publicly last summer, and I'm happy to announce last week we entered into an agreement to be acquired by Betterment. So Betterment is one of the largest independent robo-advisors in the country. They have also decided that crypto is an area of growth for investors, especially younger investors who are looking for more diversified portfolios and ways to manage their own future. And so they're bringing us into the fold to build out their crypto offering.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. I really love hearing that, on so many levels, both because I can see the growth of crypto and bringing it into more of a one step closer to being a mainstream, investment vehicle, but also having a woman, at the center of that and being, part of that. So that's fascinating. So, you talked a little bit about the fact that your co-founder did most of the technical stuff and you did the other sides of the business. I think that's a very important observation because it shows that a lot of times women don't go into these fields because they feel like, oh, I'm not a technical person. But actually, just like any other business, a crypto related business and a financial related business doesn't have to be crypto, any kind of financial kind of related business or any kind of technical business, even if it's like just strict AI, they still need so many other things. And there's a human side. And if women feel that, that's an area where they're more comfortable with, like, for example, I don't consider myself a technical person. I actually studied political philosophy, philosophy of science and technology. My understanding of technology is more on a conceptual level. Of course, I did also teach myself Python. I taught myself HTML, when it came first out, it first came out, and now I'm teaching myself more and more every day about the technical sides of the blockchain. So I learn the technical stuff just so that I have a good understanding of it when I'm working on the non-technical kind of areas and when I'm hiring people so that I can hire the right people. So that goes to show that you don't necessarily need to be technical to be able to, come up with an idea and build something like that. So tell me a little bit about your journey as a woman in this area. Do you feel like the fact that you had a male co-founder was very helpful, or if you were building it by yourself, did you see any kind of places where treatments would have been different, or what was your experience like if you were trying to raise money for it by yourself? What would have been different?
So it would have been much more challenging by myself. So I'll start by saying my co-founder, Jesse, is a fantastic human being. And I know I'm very lucky, and he's always treated me like a partner. And, there's been the things that he's good at and the things that I'm good at. And we partner really well and know each other's strengths. And for us running the business, it sometimes would actually take us by surprise when that question would come up from somebody, like, what's it like to have a male co-founder, or what's it like to have a female co-founder? And we never really knew how to answer that because we just worked together really well, and it never really crossed our mind in our interactions. But for me, being in the business, especially being in a crypto business, the number of female co-founders is extremely small. So it's definitely hard. I've been to many events where, people assume I'm a plus one. I've been to work events, cocktail receptions with my husband, and people will come up and introduce themselves to my husband. And, he thinks it's funny because then he'll say, oh, I'm with her. I'm just with her. And, my co-founder and I would go to events, and occasionally I'd get that same treatment. And so I guess those are the moments where I have to sort of make that decision. Like right now, am I going to make this moment about this person's stereotype and sort of call them out on it? Or am I going to make this moment about me showing my best self and just not focusing on that and setting an example for how I want people to see me? But as for fundraising, that would have been a very different road for sure. There were a couple times when, I would meet somebody and I would tell them about the business, I would tell them about the company, and I would tell them about my co-founder. And then they would literally say something like, well, I'd love to talk to your boss and see what he has to say. And, the amount of funding that goes to female founded companies is just abysmal. And so, we've had successful rounds, but I do watch what others are struggling through, and I don't think that it's a coincidence. My co-founder, not to discredit him, he is a fantastic entrepreneur. But I do think if it were just me trying to make those pitches, that I would be starting from a disadvantage like so many others are.
Yeah, definitely. It's a true status, like it's sad but true. And as we are building Fempeak, we are currently having an internal conversation about whether we should, rather than being a female only platform, being female led inclusive platform. Part of that is because I think that the women on our platform who are building businesses, who are, learning about a lot of things within the business sphere, they could benefit from networking with, potential male co-founders, potential male, staff even, and team members, and the truth is that it is what it is. This is the situation. We do need to change it, but we need to change it from the inside. So we need to get more women on the inside so that we can change. And I think it's really hard to do that. Like they say, one hand doesn't have any sound, right? Like you need the two hands to make the sound. In my case with Fempeak, I don't have a co-founder. I personally think that, but my personality is such that it works better for me not having a co-founder, because I move really fast. I don't really listen to anybody, and I just like in my own thing. I would feel like really slowed down if I had to consult somebody about, I just come up with ideas and I implement them. I bulldoze my way, As a result, I'm losing my voice, as you can probably tell today. But I can definitely see that I think for most people, it would make sense to have co-founders, and if it's something that helps you kind of break down some of the barriers, and over time, you change perception. But I suspect that we also do need more female-only companies, because when you have a co-founder, even when there is the success, most of the time people attribute the success to the male. And as you said, like you go to the public functions and people are like, they want to talk to him because they consider, maybe they might think that you're just a staff, right? And this happens, and a similar kind of thing happens also in terms of in racial, areas where situations where, like for example, I have this amazing skin therapist who has built an incredible brand. She's won so many awards, and she says that she goes to these awards and she's sitting there on a table with her team member, who are, some of them are white, and like people will come to the white team members and try to talk to them about, so you're do you have, like, they think that they are the owners of the brand, and then they're like, oh no, actually it's her, because she's a Black woman, so people don't assume that she is the founder and the winner of the award and the founder of the company. So the similar kind of biases, they are everywhere. So it's it's definitely very frustrating, and it does sometimes it takes people like myself, who are like taking things to the other extreme to try and change that perception, like extremely difficult. So let's talk a little bit about the business side of things. When you guys started the company, did you start it with the view to sell it? Like, was that always did you want to be acquired? Was that always the vision?
No, ironically, it was not. So the IBM acquisition was a very successful exit for the company, but the process was pretty grueling and mentally exhausting. Going from a company, I think we were 64 people at the time IBM acquired us, and trying to meld into an organization of 400,000 where everyone had competing priorities. It was exhausting and a little bit demotivating, truly, to see kind of how the company just sort of dissolved into the bigger organization, and a lot of what made it special was gone pretty quickly. And so when we decided to start the new company, the idea was, let's just keep this small. Let's build this hedge fund. Jesse identified the opportunity to really gain by making trading more efficient in the crypto space. So when we first started trading, it still is really rudimentary in some ways, but it was really hard to efficiently trade across multiple exchanges or counterparties. And so he identified the opportunity in the space, and very quickly, because we came from a technical mindset, again, I'm like you, I I want to understand how things work, but I'm not going to be writing the code. I also taught myself basic Python so that I could understand some of the basics. But Jesse was the technical person, so we attacked the problem from a technical perspective and started building software to make everything easier. And our whole tactic on everything was, if software could do it better or more efficiently or more accurately, then we would build out the software to do it. And what ended up happening is we built this software platform that was way ahead of what was out there in the industry. So when we were approached, I'd say casually, probably a half dozen times to be acquired over the last 4 years, just to buy the software we had built for the hedge fund, and we never pursued any of those over any of those conversations. We talk about them, but in the end, we were really happy building what we were building. We were really excited about what we were building, and just the thought of, especially with a hedge fund, a hedge fund, yes, could get acquired by another hedge fund, but you're still just building a hedge fund. There's not a ton of difference. So then when we spun out the new technology, which was a totally different focus, and it was retail focus, that's when we really started thinking that an acquisition made a lot more sense, because this industry is growing so quickly and people are adding so much all the time, and now it's getting the attention of a lot of the big players in the traditional financial world, and we knew that we couldn't grow as rapidly as we wanted to if we didn't partner in some way with somebody else. So it really wasn't until about a year ago, when we started this new entity, that we realized that potentially an acquisition was the right way to go. And ironically, we were in the middle of raising our Series A when the acquisition conversation started, and we were negotiating our Series A term sheet. We were very happy with the leads that we were going to be working with on that series, and then Betterment came in and said, "Hey, hold on a second, we'd like to talk to you guys about an acquisition." And we had ironically also pitched ourselves as the Betterment of crypto. So our early pitch decks even have, Makara is the Betterment of crypto. And so when Betterment came in and said, "Hey, we're interested in acquiring you guys," it just felt right. The things that they prioritized were the same things we prioritized, and our product and their product were built with the same kind of philosophy. So that just sealed the deal for us.
Amazing. So it was kind of like a match made in heaven. So you feel very differently about this process than the IBM thing that you described, right? So it feels like it's like you're in good hands. And are you going to be working with them for quite a while to make sure that everything goes smoothly? Are you like your earnout and all that stuff, or is it like bye, you're going to do something else?
So so Jesse and I, a year ago, when we launched the second company, we kind of took a step back. Up until then, he had been CEO and I had been COO. And we realized when we spun the company out that it didn't make sense to continue being split like that. So I moved into the CEO role on the Strix Leviathan side, and he moved into the CEO role on the Makara side. So that is one thing that is a big adjustment for me, is particularly, is now with this acquisition, we're really splitting the two companies apart. Jesse will go and work with Betterment full time. I will stay with Strix Leviathan. I'll continue on as an advisor in some capacity with Betterment. There's a lot of transition that needs to happen. And plus, I really love what we've built and I want to support it for the long run. So I'm definitely available as a resource to that team as long as I can be helpful. And the rest of the team on the Makara side is all going over to focus 100% on Betterment.
Awesome. And what do you think will be your next step, your next move after this is all like sort of completed? What do you think you'll be doing? Because I'm really hoping that we see more of the women who are building these businesses, whether it's with co-founders or by themselves, that they go in to become angel investors and support other female-led companies. We need really more like hedge funds that are focused on female-led companies as well. So I just wondered whether that's something that's like on your journey down the line.
I think so, for sure. I can't imagine not wanting to be involved in this process for the rest of my life. And last year, I did my first angel investment through the Graham and Walker Fund, which is formerly known as the Female Founders Alliance, and managed by Leslie Feinzag. And she has been absolutely fantastic for me as a resource and a sounding board as I've been going through the last year, particularly. And that they also, the Graham and Walker Fund, participated in our last financing round. So it was pretty fun to be their first exit in the fund. And through that entity, I'm seeing a ton of opportunities that are coming through their pipeline that I would love to be more involved in. And so I can see myself hopefully being able to mentor or invest or advise any of these startups and become more involved in groups like the Graham and Walker. I think what they've done is just absolutely fantastic. FemPeak, I think, is fantastic. And I think the future that I want to be involved in, the future that I want to see, is more groups like FemPeak and Graham and Walker and Ladies Get Paid. And there's more that I'm forgetting to mention, but I'd love to see all of these groups become powerful venture backing for all of these female startups that aren't getting the attention that they need.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I think it's super fascinating, and I'm so glad that we met. So, and you're going to be doing sessions on FemPeak, so we'll talk more about that. Women really need a lot of support in these areas because they are, one of the biggest problems is that they are not even familiar with the terminology that's used within we had a session on FemPeak about how to raise investment for your startup. And you would think people who come to that session have at least heard the term VC. There were people who were like, what is a VC? And, then we had to explain the difference between angel investors and VCs and, things like that. So we need new and creative ways to involve women, especially from a younger age as well. But, even at any age doesn't matter because of technology, we all live longer now, and we're going to be around for a while, so we might as well create more businesses and build things. Life's exciting. So one of the things that I have at least observed, is that I think one of the reasons why women don't build as many big businesses, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, is that most of the time when women think of building a business, they're thinking about the meaning behind it. They're thinking about the impact. Whereas for men, most of the time, building a business is actually a game, and they enjoy the excitement of it. Of course, everybody wants to make an impact, but the game does matter. And personally, I see business as a game, and I think that's what makes it fun. And that's why I'm really competitive. I want to win. I'm doing this because I want to win, because it's fun, right? It's the adrenaline, right? And I think if we could encourage that spirit of game playing and thinking of business as a game, for more women, it could also help them with risk taking and with being able to just think a little bit more outside the box and like relax a little bit about the possibility of failure, the possibility of things going wrong, managing stress better, things like that. So I wonder what your observation is on that. Do you have any children?
I have two. Yes.
Daughters?
I have a son and a daughter, 9 and 11.
Do you see any difference in their behavior towards what I'm just explaining about games and game playing?
Yes, they definitely are. They focus on things differently. They take things in differently. they see the consequences differently. And I completely agree. I mean, my two children are such different human beings, and it's really interesting to see, you know, they've been born and raised in the exact same environment. They're less than a year and a half apart, and they're just still so very different. And some of that, you know, is totally out of our control, and some of it I would love to figure out what makes each of them tick. But I see the same thing that you were mentioning in the broader entrepreneurial world, and you said something about being afraid of losing, or being willing to lose or fail. And my opinion, or observation, totally my opinion, is that women in general they take it all more personally, and we also beat ourselves up so much more. And, you know, a lot of times I'll notice that if there's a failure and it's a male, they're more willing to kind of say, hey, it was the business model, or it was this or that, and they're less willing to say it was me, sometimes to a fault when there are contributing factors. I think sometimes they're less willing to say, hey, I shouldn't have done, you know, things this way. But, you know, it's always easy to be an armchair critic. But I know with women, especially women that I know who've had businesses that have failed or struggled, they take it personally. And it's, you know, they don't look at, hey, maybe it really is that right now something's wrong with the business model because some regulation changed or something like that. They literally think of, well, if I would have worked harder, if I would have tried harder, or maybe if I was smarter, or, you know, that crazy imposter syndrome that comes in and tells us that we're the reason it failed. And so we're less likely to sort of just toss something when it's ready to be completely rebuilt or walk away. And that's something that I think really holds a lot of women back sometimes. You know, there's sometimes when I'm listening to somebody, and, you know, they're giving their background, and they're talking about some experience, and it's a total failure. Like that they were in some experience that totally failed, but they're able to sort of learn from it, explain the business ramifications, explain what they were willing to do differently next time, and then they move on. But then there are others that just sort of holds them back, and they feel like it's them failing instead of the business. And I mean, businesses are not people. They're like something we create, and it's just like art. Sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you really get it wrong. And, you know, that hold back for females, I tend to see a lot more than in males. And I do it to myself. I mean, whenever things are going poorly or I'm struggling with something, you know, then I start going, well, what did I do wrong? Or what should I do differently? Or maybe if I did this differently, or maybe if I was better at that. And then you have to sort of kick yourself in the butt and say, whoa,
yeah,
practice some self-caring and step back and focus on the business problem. Don't put yourself into it.
Yeah, I think as women, even the best of us, when I say best, what I mean by that in terms of the most self-centric of us, that are least focused on other people, you know, in a business sense, in that, you know, in that environment. And I consider myself in that category. That's like, I'm really self-centric. I don't care what people say. I do my thing. Even, you know, from somebody like me, I still have moments where, like, just one email from a member really affects me. Like, you know, if somebody says something critical, you know, like in one day, we get tens of emails every day from people saying how we changed their lives, you know, like there are people who are like, I've only been here for 3 weeks and I've got all these amazing ideas. I feel so energized. And then there might be like one person who says something a little bit negative, like, oh, the sound quality of, you know, this speaker's thing yesterday was not very good. And I'm like, then I'd be like ruminating over that. And I don't even notice it necessarily. Like, I don't know, like, I just feel like my mood has gone down. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I've been like really in a bad mood in the past 6 hours. Why am I in such a bad mood? And then I realized, oh, like I got that email and it really affected me, you know, or maybe like somebody says something on YouTube or something like that, and I'm like, this is so not true, and I just really want to like go and check the person and like take their their color like that, no, this is not true. This is not what we're doing. What I mean? And I just take it so personally, and I'm like, why am I taking it so personally? Like thousands of people, they're gonna like it, they're gonna not like it, and I think this is a very, very female trait. And even those of us who aren't generally like that, we still get like that, and at least sometimes. So yeah, I don't have children, and I decided not to have children because I was like, there's no way I can have children and do everything I'm doing. I don't have the kind of support. I don't have any family in the UK, so I'm just not going to like have children. But I think that if I had children, that would even stop me even more, because just looking at my kittens, I feel like I'm not giving them enough time, and imagine like if you had kids, right? And you feel like that sense of guilt, right? Like, so we want to take care of everybody and we want to keep everybody happy. And then, you're also trying to kind of build a business. So how did you deal with that, with two kids and building what you're doing? I'm sure it was very intense.
Yeah, it was definitely super intense. I got this question recently from somebody else, and I told them that I started training for this when I was getting my master's. So I did the evening program because I was working full time and I wanted to get my MBA, but I didn't want to quit and work and do the full time MBA. So I started the evening program, and then I got pregnant in my first year, and towards the end of the year. So, it was pretty early. And then when I came back at the end of the summer to start the second year, I had a pretty big belly sticking out by that point. And just there were shock waves. People were just like stunned that I was coming back for my second year and I was pregnant. And I even had one guy who, very ignorant in some ways, very intelligent person, but ignorant in some ways. And he walked up and said, "Are you going to be able to finish the program? Are you are you going to drop out?" And I just said, "Why would I drop out?" And he said, "Well, because you're pregnant." And I said, "Yeah, I'm just going to have the baby and keep going." And he honestly was kind of horrified. And apparently later somebody told me he was making jokes about like me giving birth in class. And, and I just ignored it.
Wow.
So I had my son my second year in my program. The program, other than that one individual, was incredibly supportive. My professors were supportive. The program was supportive. And then I kept going, and I had my daughter during my third year. And so I ended up having a longer MBA. I graduated in the fifth year, but I had both of my kids during the program. And I became the go-to person for the MBA program office whenever there was a female candidate who would express concern about managing school and potentially work and kids. And so I talked to dozens of women over the years who were, saying, how do you do it? And I just say, you just do it. There's some days when your kitchen is an absolute mess, your laundry pile is taller than you are. But if your kids are happy and fed and, you are getting stuff done that you need to get done, not the want to get done, but the need to get done. It's like, as long as you're getting what you need to get done and your children are happy and healthy, like you're fine. All that other stuff you can catch up on if you need to later. And that's kind of carried into my career. Mm-hmm. And when I first started this company with Jesse, my husband was getting his PhD. So it was just straight chaos. There were moments when I thought, what am I doing? I'm absolutely insane. But Jesse, my co-founder, also has two young kids, very similar ages, and also focused on managing time. And there were days when things might be chaotic, but I could say, my daughter has a ballet recital, I'm offline for the next two hours. And it didn't matter if something just completely caught on fire, the team covered it. And so we just set expectation among the company that family comes first. And if anyone had anything like that, we've had deaths and loss of family members within our team, and everyone has just stepped in and covered, and there's no judgment, there's no shame. And then, there are times when people just forget to. So I've had to just establish boundaries of, going in on my calendar and saying 2 days a week, I pick my kids up from school and I take them to their activities. And that is like really important time for me because I'm walking from school to drop them off at soccer or swimming. And that's time that I need and that they need. And those calls can wait. And then sometimes I'm up till midnight, more than I care to admit, catching up on email or taking calls so that I can have that time with my kids. But it's a juggle. It's hard. And there's definitely a lot of things I haven't pursued in my life because of it. But those are all choices we all make, and everyone makes them for their own reasons. And either way, it's excruciatingly tough to run a business. I mean, even without kids, you are under so much pressure, and I mean, there's no comparison. So it's a hard journey either way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I take my hats off to you because I don't think I could have done it. Just like sometimes when people tell me, oh, Somi, this is amazing, you've achieved all these things. And I'm like, yeah, you realize I don't have kids. It makes a big difference. I couldn't have done it. I don't think I could have. It's very, very hard. But I think that's a good place to bring our conversation to an end. I think it's very inspiring for everybody what you've achieved. Congratulations again on your success, and looking forward to follow your journey. I think there's quite a lot, and I hope quite a lot for people to learn about, to follow your journey. And, I'm hoping to continue to see you, making an impact and supporting other women and supporting other people, everybody, really. The reason why I focus on women is because of the massive gap that we have in women, being able to build these businesses and gain that kind of success. And I think that it's, I can't compare it to having kids because I haven't had kids, but building a business is like bringing up a child in many respects. And it's very satisfying, it's very rewarding. It's got a different kind of, sense of leaving a legacy and accomplishment, which I think it's an amazing feeling. And I hope that more women can experience it because it's just fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I admire greatly what you've built, and I'm super happy to be part of the FemPeak platform. And I have high hopes for all the things that this is going to turn into and become.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sadie. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sadie Raney. She's also a regular contributor to FemPeak, and you should definitely join the platform and tune into her excellent educational sessions. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Arian Show.